Hello class. In this video we're going to look at finding the area of a shape with fractional sides, or in other words, multiplying fractions together. We're also going to look at today finding the area of a shape where one side is a whole number and the other side is a fraction or a mixed number. So to begin with, I would like you to take your papers and I would like you to draw a square that is 2 by 2. Okay, so you've got your graph paper there, and you're just going to take and draw a square that is 2 by 2. So it looks like this. Okay, please do that now. And here's what I would like this square to represent. I would like this square to represent one whole unit. Instead of being 2 by 2, I want us to think of it as 1 by 1. Okay, so if I go from here to here, that is one whole, and from here to here, that is also one whole. So when I take and I draw these lines, okay, what I've just done is I've divided it in half. Okay, so I have half a square right here. And if I take and draw a line right here, I've also divided it in half both of these ways. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and do that on your papers, please. Okay, now here comes the part that might be a little mind-blowing or a little counterintuitive. And that is, we're going to look at an area that is 1/2, okay, so only going from here to here, by 1/2 here to here. Okay, so I'm going to color that completely in. Okay, and I'm going to shade it. And now I want you to tell me, if you can, how big that area is. Okay, so as we look at that area and we look at the total shape in square units, okay, we can say this is 1 by 1, okay, or 2/2 by 2/2. So when we look at the total number of pieces in that box, there are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 2/2 by 2/2, and let me zoom out a little bit so you can see what I'm writing here. There we go. 2/2 by 2/2 gives me 4/4. Okay, so that's 1 by 1 or 2/2 by 2/2. And if I just look at a piece that is 1/2 by 1/2, I get 1 out of 4. Okay, so 1/2 by 1/2, or 1/2 times 1/2, equals 1/4. And that's probably a little counterintuitive for some of us, because maybe before, when we weren't dealing with fractions, our teacher told us when you multiply, your answer gets larger. Okay, well, that's only true if you're multiplying by numbers 1 and above. Okay, if you're multiplying by a number smaller than 1, your answer actually gets smaller. Let's try it again. Here's what I want you to set up. So let's try it again. This time I want you to draw a rectangle that is 1, 2, 3, 4 small squares by 1, 2, 3. 4 by 3. Go ahead and draw that now. So once again, we're going to look at this as one whole unit. Okay, and as we go down, up and down, draw your lines. Okay, and we have divided it across into fourths, so I can label that. And going across, we have divided it into thirds, 1, 2, 3. So 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Now we've divided into fourths and thirds. So the total size of this, Okay, if we were to say going across is 1, so 1 whole, and 1 whole is 4/4. And going down, we have thirds. And the total size of this piece here is 12 twelfths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 pieces total. 12 out of 12 makes 1 whole. So as we are multiplying our fractions, let's begin with 1/3 times 1/4. Okay, well, that should be pretty easy. 1/3 times 1/4. When we multiply, as opposed to adding, A, we don't need common denominators, and B, the number does change. We multiply across for our new denominator because we have divided this into 12. Okay, and in this case, we're talking about 1 out of 12. 1/3 times 1/4 is 1/12. Well, what if we decided to go with 2/3? Okay, now look what happens. We get 2/3 because we've gone 2/3 of the way down, but we've only got an area that is 1/4 across, and we get 2/12. And some of us may recognize that we can reduce that. Divide the top and the bottom by the same number, divide both by 2, and you get 1/6. Okay, well, let's try another one. Let's stay with our 2/3, only this time let's go 3/4 of the way across. 1, 2, 3. That takes us all the way out to here. Okay, so we've got all these squares if we have 2/3 times 3/4. Okay, and the area we have, if we just count it, we have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 6, multiply across, and again, multiply across. So when we're finding the area of a fractional piece, all we need to do is multiply both numerators and denominators to come up with our answers. Okay, this time I would like you to draw a rectangle that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 by 5. Please go ahead and do that now. Okay, in this case, we're going to look at a rectangle, not that is 1 whole. Instead, we're going to look at one that is 6 across. So this top measurement is 6. So each of these little divisions here represents 1 whole unit. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Going down, we are going to say that each one of these represents a half unit. Okay, so to make a whole, it takes 2. And we have 1 whole here, and we have 1 whole here, but here we have another half. Okay, so our total dimension is 6 by 2 and 1/2. Okay, so how are we going to solve that to find out the area of this total piece? Well, again, we can kind of draw our lines down. Okay, and going down, we have divided it into 6 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and going across, okay, that's divided it into our wholes, but really going across we have halves, so let's go ahead and divide that too. I'm going to do a dashed line so we can tell the difference. Okay, now, in order for us to solve this, one way that we could do this, okay, and there are a couple ways, we'll talk about another one tomorrow. One way we could do this, if we knew the size of each one of these little pieces and could count up the number of pieces, that would tell us the size or the area inside of here. And we can do that, okay? Because we know that each piece is 1/2, okay? Going up, it's 1/2 by 1. 1/2 times, and any whole number over 1 represents itself. So the size of each piece has an area of 1/2. Okay, so each one of these squares has an area of 1/2. Now all we have to do is count up the number of squares and put it over 2, divided by 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each row has 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Okay, so we have 30 squares, and again, as a whole number, that's 30 over 1, and each square equals an area of 1/2, giving us an area of 30 over 2. Okay, or another way to look at that, 30 divided by 2 is equal to 15. 15 over 1, 15 wholes. Okay, mathematically, let's take a look at this. And the easiest way to do this, okay, mathematically, is just to take each of these numbers here. So that here we have a size of 2.5 by 6, which is what we started with here. Okay, and I'm going to turn each of those numbers into an improper fraction. Now, it's easy with the 6, okay, because the 6 is a whole number. They're whole units. Okay, so I have 6 whole units. A little bit more challenging with this one, but I chose a number I'm hoping we can do. You have 2.5, okay, so we have 2 and 1/2, which basically is each time we have a whole, we have 2 over 2, and we have 2 wholes. 2 over 2 plus 2 over 2. Okay, there's 1 whole, there's 2 wholes, and there's our half. Okay, and again, we've talked about taking the number of holes times the number of, or excuse me, the number of pieces times the number of holes. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. That gives us our numerator, and our denominator will be 2. Okay, so we got 5 halves. So here we have 6 over 1 times 5 over 2. And when we multiply across, 6 times 5 is 30. Well, that should look familiar. 1 times 2 is 2. And that should look familiar. And our final answer is 30 over 2, which reduces down to 15 in this case. Okay, from here we're going to try some practice problems. Hope you found this helpful.